Okay, take number 2, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you may be. Welcome to the Irv Homer Show, the Monday, March 23rd, 2009 edition. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we do this program at 8 o'clock. That's daylight saving time on the East Coast. We notice from our Facebook we have listeners all over the world, and we have a list of them here, and I want to thank you for joining us from New York to Florida to Michigan to Chicago, all over the place. So we do appreciate the fact that you're finding this program interesting and a little different than other programs. For those of you who are just joining us, I've been in talk radio for some 40 years in the Philadelphia area. From Philadelphia, made it in Philadelphia, still live in Philadelphia, do this program. Also do a daily program on WBCB 1490 AM. And the program is streamed so you can listen at 1 o'clock Monday through Friday on the Irv Homer Show. The program is swinging from any direction I choose to go. I have no program director, I have no station manager. It is my program. It is obvious, ladies and gentlemen, from the website and from the email that I received, that even though I have given some 12 books for you not to read, you may get educated, not only on this particular program, but on the commercial radios that I've worked, that nobody reads them. And the reason you don't read them, how do I know you don't read them, is because if you did, you wouldn't ask the questions that I get on radio. I will just mention some of the books that if you want to be informed and won't be befuddled by what is going on today, you could read a book by David Hackworth, former colonel, called Hazardous Duty. Another book by Lewis Puller called Fortunate Son. A book called New Lies for Old Lies by Anatoly Golitsyn, a former KGB agent in the Soviet Union. Looking Backward by Edward Bellamy. The Rich and the Super Rich, which is a study in the power of money in America by Ferdinand Lundberg. America's 60 Leading Families by Ferdinand Lundberg. Trading with the Enemy, which is an expose of the Nazi American money plot. Adolf Hitler spent $435 billion, which is a pittance by today's money. But where did he get it when Germany was broke? He got it from the United States. We financed Adolf Hitler. Comes as a surprise? Well, read the book. It is documented completely. Ain't Nobody's Business If I Do, an interesting book by Peter McWilliams and Gene Citalo. A book that is now gaining popularity again, that I told my listeners to read 25 years ago when I first had the author Edward Griffin on the air, The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is a second look at the Federal Reserve. Ferdinand Lundberg's book called Cracks in the Constitution. You wonder why things that are done appear not to be constitutional. Well, read the book Cracks in the Constitution, and you'll read how this Constitution of ours was written so that certain privileged people can have advantages that we don't have. The book called The Bureau and the Mole, The Unmasking of Robert Hansen, the most dangerous double agent in FBI history by David Weiss. These are just some of the books that if you did read, you would understand why we're in the position we're in today, and would clear up a lot of questions that you have in your mind, probably eliminate a lot of the frustrations. Some of the things that I find extremely interesting, and I can't get answers to. Everyone complains about it, nobody has any answers to it. For example, and I will throw this out. Incidentally, we do have a telephone number for you to call in here at 215-253-8877. 215-253-8877. And the industry over the years has tried to figure out who are the people who call talk radio. Well, usually about 1 out of every 6, between 500 and 1,000 people who listen to talk radio actually call. So for every caller that you receive in talk radio, there are allegedly about 500 people listening. And I cannot understand a country that has a Second Amendment which gives you the right of free speech, especially on the internet, this type of program, where there is no FCC watching what we say or how we say it, that people don't avail themselves. They just sit and listen. Duh. It boggles the mind. And sometimes I do this program, the telephone doesn't ring at all. It goes on the chat room. The chat room is available if you have questions or comments that you want to make, or introduce a subject that would like to have other viewers or other listeners discuss. But no, you need a set of jumper cables to get the mental process in America to work today for most people, except those who are callers to talk radio. You can follow on the Irv Homer Show on Twitter at www.twitter.com/Irv Homer Show. So that being said, let me get to the meat of the problem. One of the things that has come up has been the problem of teachers and education in America. And the president is now being criticized for subsidizing education around the country. Well, I am against. Now think of this. I know most people listening to this program, with the exception of teachers, hate teachers, right? They make too much money. They have the opportunity to go on strike. They inconvenience us. We got to do something about that teachers' union. They're too powerful. And so at home we educate our kids to hate the teacher. Children are like sponges. They absorb everything they hear, and if it comes from the parents, 9 times out of 10, they believe it. So when you're having dinner at home, or breakfast, or lunch, or whatever it is, and you're discussing with your spouse or your friends, them damn teachers make too much money, them damn teachers this, them damn teachers that, you then expect your child to go to school and have respect for the very people that you just got done cursing. It is so mind-boggling that I can't figure it out. I have to tell you that I am totally against mandatory education in America. I am against it. I'll continue in just a moment. Alan Tolles, a former producer at WWDB and a very dear friend of a former broadcaster who I respected, admired, and loved, a fellow by the name of Jerry Williams. Producer was Alan Tolles. Alan, I believe, now lives in New Hampshire, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And I believe Alan ended up owning a radio station up there. And he well deserves it because he was sharp.
Actually, he manages multiple ones.
Oh, he manages multiple stations. Yeah. Okay. Alan, congratulations. You deserve it, kid. You are a hell of a producer and a hell of an asset to WWDB. Alan has a comment here. Evil Irv was and still is one of my favorite radio talk hosts. I had the good fortune to work with Irv at WWDB in the early 1980s. WWDB at that point in time was one of the great talk stations in America, with Dominic Quinn, Frank Ford, Bob Grant, Jerry Williams, and Irv Homer. I think Bernie Herman joined that crew after Bob Grant left and Irv went to middays. Now I listen online when I can. Thanks, Ron, for keeping the site running so well. And Irv, keep on doing a great job so you won't be ashamed of yourself, as a former sponsor, Al Rubin, used to say. Alan, so good to hear from you and know that you're doing well. You deserve it, my dear friend. And as I've said to many producers that I've worked with at WWDB and at the present radio station, I can tell you which ones of the interns are going to make it and which ones aren't in the industry. Alan happened to be one of the ones, with Matt Zucker, Maureen the Magnificent, and many other, John Rose. Well, Tommy McDonald didn't do talk radio, but was a newsman, and all of these young people have made a name for themselves in the broadcast industry. So this is the reward you get after the years of being on radio, when you hear from the young people who are now moving in and taking over the reins of talk radio. They belong on syndicated radio. Let me get back to teaching, and I want your comments on it. I am opposed to mandatory education by the federal government or state governments. A few years back, I complimented the Catholic school system, the Friends school system, and all religious parochial schools, because the parents of those children who bred those children, saw fit to give them an education in private schools where there is discipline, education, moral code, dress code in some, and turning out educated students. And the teachers there get paid less than in the public school system. And for some reason or other, they seem to turn out quality students and quality education. Why do we have mandatory education in America? Why is it necessary, when you have children, that the public school system has to feed them breakfast? Why is it that we spend millions of dollars busing children to schools, and every dime that is spent on busing does not educate a child one bit? Why do we have non-teaching assistants in the public school systems so that we do not have violence in our public school system? Why is it in some public schools you have metal detectors so the teachers will feel safe and comfortable in the schools? Why is it necessary to have police cars stationed outside of the public schools to prevent violence? Because we have mandatory education. Why is it that teachers are required to be the babysitters for parents who do not want to sacrifice having children? Why is it that we have vacations for children in the summertime? It takes 3 weeks to shut a school down in the spring, and then it takes 3 weeks when school starts again in the fall to get children acclimated to sitting still, setting a criteria for the curriculum that they're going to study. And so we lose about 6 weeks of schooling when the schools close for the summer vacation and start again in the fall. Why do we close our schools in the summertime? Will someone answer that question? Will someone answer me why parents turn their children over to the babysitting institute, the federal babysitting institute called public schools, and then bitch about the job the teachers do? Now, I know I probably won't receive any comments on anyone tonight because of my position. But if you have children, you train them, you change their shitty diapers, you change their pee diapers, you watch them when they're sleeping to make sure they don't die of crib death, you take them and get them vaccinated, you take them to the doctor when they're ill, you burp them when they have a little tummy ache, but you want the teachers to babysit them. Why don't we have a private school system altogether? If you have a child and you want that child to get an education, you spend the money per taxpayer and educate your child in a private school system. But all I hear is this constant bitching about the public schools and the teachers make too much money. And the answer is, do not have mandatory education. And why is it necessary to close the schools for vacations? Vacation from what? Getting educated? Teaching them so they can make a living when they grow up? Take a look at the competition that we have around the world and find out how many other countries that we're in international competition with, while we are falling behind in our academic standards to compete on the world market. You want to know why jobs are outsourced? They're outsourced because the intelligent level of countries like India, South Korea, Vietnam, The Soviet Union, Germany, Italy don't have summer vacations. And yet Boobus America will sit and pick its nose and scratch its ass and complain that the teachers make too much money. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want a child, is it too much effort for you to educate them, to get them to school on time, to feed them in the morning breakfast, to pack their lunch? No comment on the chat room board. The telephone number is 215-253-8877. But I'm not surprised, because I'm the guy that makes you think. And thinking is something that we don't do as adults. You want somebody else to think for you. If you think teachers have a difficult time teaching children, try doing the type of program that Irv Homer does over the years and trying to educate adults. It is more difficult to teach Boobus America on the issues that will save their lives today and in the future than it is to try to educate children. It boggles my mind. It really does. So there should not be any mandatory education in America. It should be eliminated. And there should be no summer vacation. On the chat room, summer vacation was allowed for families to utilize their children to farm their crops. Now, I guess for a lot of dumb reasons. You're absolutely right. When America was an agrarian nation, when we needed children to work on the fields, we had summer vacation so that they could farm the crops. And so, how many people have kids that they don't farm? The Amish, the Mennonites, they go to school 12 months a year. The Amish, the Mennonites, they're not on welfare. They very seldom have unwed mothers. Their parents of the Mennonite and Amish children are concerned about raising their children. They don't even believe in busing them. On the chat room, schools don't teach how to make a living. Well, why not? Because the Boobus parents, instead of examining who establishes the curriculum for kids in school, bitch about the teachers not teaching them anything. Who establishes the curriculum for the public school systems? Do you know? The answer is no. But as long as the public school system will babysit your kids, you're happy, and you're happy to bitch and complain. I know this. On the chat room again. Summer vacation stems from the days when children work on the farm in the summer, helping their parents to tend to bring up. So what? It's over. You know any kids in Center City, Philadelphia, Doylestown, Norristown that have to tend crops? I know, in a line in Fiddler on the Roof when Tevye talks to God, he says, God, I got the disease. What's the cure? I know what the disease is. I'm offering a cure. I want to know how you feel, not about why they close the schools in the summertime. I want to know how you feel about eliminating vacations so the teachers will teach 12 months a year, the same as you have to work, with the exception of maybe getting a week or 2 weeks off where they bring a substitute teacher in. And I want to know, instead of bitching, I'd like to hear from people, how many of you bitch and complain that teachers make too much money? And how many of you really get pissed off when they go on strike or there's a snow day and you have to stay home and take care of your children? When the hell did the federal government become the babysitter for the broodmares in this country? I am sick and tired of listening to bellyachers without no solution. The vacation industry, like Wildwood, would die. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't die. The casinos aren't dying. They could go to Wildwood on the weekends. Maybe give the kid a week or 2 weeks vacation when the parent has a vacation. But 3 months? Another comment on the chat room. Schools, in addition to being open during the summer, should teach more math and science to give the kids a fighting chance in the new economy. Well, I agree. But the responsibility, basically, my dear friends, is for the parents to teach them, not the teachers. When a child enrolls in school, he has to know how to go to the bathroom by himself. He has to know how to dress himself. He has to know a lot of things. He has to know how to tie his shoes. So the parents do educate a child before it gets to school. But once it's in school, the school becomes the nanny. And then you bitch and complain about the cost of education. Let's go to Howard on the telephone. Howard, welcome.
Good God, let me tell you something. Not only am I...
Can you speak a little louder, please?
I got it.
Not only am I back, but I'm in the game, and I'm playing the game. And I'll quantify that for you. I moved back here from Thailand. I'll give you the short story.
Taiwan.
My wife abducted my son. She took him. She's bipolar. She disappeared with him for a week. I found him, and I brought him back here. That's the end of that story. Now I'm back home, living with my parents, trying to make a go of get my life back together. I got my son in school. Finally, it took him, he's only 2 years old, and it took me 2 weeks to get him into a school because everybody wanted him to have the vaccination shots. They were telling me I had to give him the vaccinations. It didn't matter that these idiots couldn't read the Pennsylvania law that says that not only do I have the right to have a religious objection, but I can have a strong personal objection to vaccinations. I just happen to have a personal objection to putting mercury in my son's body on purpose. I won't do it. But it took me 2 weeks to find a school that would even take him. I finally had to go to one that was completely private, but they're drying up like you wouldn't believe. And most of them are all telling me, hey, well, it's the law. Well, it's not the law, because the law says that if I have a personal objection, I'm exempt. They don't have to do anything. They can admit my son. But half of them are too scared to even read the law and understand what it says. Now, if these people who are teaching our children can't have the ability to even read the law and read what it says, even when it's written in plain English, why do I want them teaching my children during the summer break when I don't even know what it is that they're teaching them? And maybe they're teaching them something that's no good.
Well, you are a responsible parent, Howard. And now, are you for or against mandatory public education?
I'm against mandatory public education.
I agree.
Because one, let's say, okay, let's give an example. Let's say I don't have enough money to pay for private school of my choice, and now I'm stuck in the public school. So what do? Now I got to keep him in a public school, and maybe they're teaching him things that I don't agree with. Maybe they're so stupid that they can't teach him anything that I can't teach him at home. Maybe he's just wasting his time, and I'm going to tell you what they're not going to teach him. They're not going to teach him to be an entrepreneur. They're not going to teach him to think for himself. They certainly wouldn't have done it in Thailand, and they're not going to do it here. And I'm not going to be here long enough in this country to get to that point.
Howard?
My kids didn't. Yeah?
Oh, excuse me, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say thanks for calling, but you had something else to say.
Okay. No, I made my point.
Thanks for calling, Howard. Welcome home. On the chat room, Irv, I have a second grader in Catholic school. I'd rather pay for her to be safe and educated than get a freebie from the public school. I pack her lunch and drive her myself, even though she could get a bus. Well, first of all, you're not getting a freebie from the public school because you're paying taxes for it. I have a commendation in the studio here from Cardinal O'Hara, who was the Cardinal of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, when I applauded the private school system, both Catholic, Jewish, Presbyterian, Mennonite, you name it. And I insisted at that time on the air and caught all kind of hell for it. I don't know why, I was telling the truth. I said that every Catholic school parent who pays public school taxes and has a child in a parochial school should attend school board meetings, since you're not only paying taxes for the public school that you don't use for your child, you pay tuition into the parochial or private school. As a taxpayer, you are entitled to attend, and I suggest and almost demand that you go to the public school meetings even though your child doesn't attend public school. You're paying for it. You are entitled to see where your tax dollars go. Well, apparently the good cardinal felt it was incumbent upon him either to listen to the program that I did, or someone got to him from his archdiocese and said, "You ought to hear Irv Homer. I think he became a Catholic. Look what he's saying." Well, it was a very complimentary letter that the cardinal sent me. And I mean it even today. Why you stupid parochial school parents don't go into the public school board meetings and voice an opinion on where your tax dollars go, even though you don't avail yourself of it, boggles my mind. And instead of worrying about marching to Washington against abortion that you're not going to influence the Supreme Court of the United States, march to the public board meetings and demand an accountability of the Taj Mahals that they built, the no-bid contracts, the poor education system of the curriculum that's established by somebody. I don't know who. Do you know? You send your child to the public school. Do you know who established that curriculum? Did you ever find out? And the answer is no. But as long as the school system is willing to babysit your kid, you're happy as a pig in mud. Our next comment on the chat room: as a substitute, I asked the kids, "Why do you think you have to be here?" Not to my surprise, they answered, "She will have a job," and this was fourth graders. Well, basically, that's the reason anyone gets an education. So what does that mean? Wouldn't a parent teach a child how to make a living? We used to call them apprentices. Irv, this and previous generation have been indoctrinated, not educated. Parents today do not want to take the responsibility to be the first educator. If they do not take on that responsibility, even private schools, John Dewey must be smiling. Well, no question about it. The parent is the first educator of a child. 90% of them teach them how to be housebroken, how to take care, how to feed themselves, how to wash themselves. And so parents can educate their children or send them to a private school and use your own money to educate your child. Why give it to the state and then pass it down the chain of command? And if we really love our kids, as we pretend to, I repeat, as we pretend to, you would educate your child. And it just boggles my mind that we have this mandatory prison called the public school system. Next comment on the chat room, and it's available. Public schools are just like any other government arm. It is a way to tax and control its people. Here we pay real estate taxes to fund public school regardless if they are enrolled. Of course. That's why I said it's the most ridiculous form of taxation or government interference into the private lives of citizens that I've ever seen. But it will then make a child or a parent be responsible for that child. And you can make mandatory attendance by government, but not mandatory attendance in a public school. And if you're paying out of your pocket cash hard money to a school system and you find out that child's not going to school, you'll raise holy hell with that kid. You won't need a truant officer, or what do they call them now? Home visitors. You want to have an adversary position between the teachers and the parents. Next comment on our chat room. They will never give up the tax money. I don't even have any children in school anymore, and these taxes are forcing older people out of their homes. It's outrageous. Of course it is. Of course it does. The whole system of education in America is outrageous. Vacations 3 months a year. And the funny part about it is, if the child doesn't learn during the time the school is open, they have a thing called summer school. We're totally insane, and you taxpayers who support public education are insane along with it. Now give me the downside of my argument on eliminating mandatory education. How many of you really hate your kids? Oh, you love them as long as they get the hell out of the house in the morning and go to school. Then in the summertime, oh God, can't wait for school. Even kids love to go to school to get the hell away from their parents. But let them go to a private school of their own choice so that they get a benefit from the curriculum that's taught there. Are they teaching truth? Which country, which school? Go all over Europe. You'll see that the biggest percentage of school education in Europe, in Italy, parts of Northern Africa, the civilized section of Africa, and in China, education is not mandatory. In fact, in the Soviet Union, the private schools help you get an education. They get you in there. The government does have a public education. It's called Moscow University. And the universities in Russia, who are our big fear, they went to the moon, they have rockets, they've got all the stuff we have. They don't care where the child comes from. If the child has an academic rating, the kid goes into school. Our next comment on the chat room. In high school, my English teacher let us watch R-rated movies and took his class to Bermuda every year. What a joke. Of course it is. Of course it is. There's no telling who established the criteria and why principals don't watch what the teachers are doing. But the parents are knuckleheads. I just don't get it. And above all, we lie to our kids and then wonder why the teachers are upset. Yeah, you lie to your kids. Don't tell me you don't. I'll tell you how you do it. When I do it. Remember, my oldest son was doing pretty good in school. And he wanted to go in town for see a ball game. I forget just exactly what it is. My senior citizen moment is moving in. And I think it was a ball game. So I took him to the ball game, and the next day I wrote a note for his absence. And I wrote in there that took him to the ball game, so blah, 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 blah. And the teacher gave me a harsh letter. This is an unexcused absence. Oh, they were going to call me before the Warren Commission, I think, to find out who killed Kennedy. I don't know what the hell they are. I mean, this teacher went totally ballistics. I would like to see you. Okay, baby, you got no problem with that. So I went to the school, and after the teacher got done berating me for taking my son out of school that day, I said to the teacher, now, Miss, pardon my expression, but are you having menstrual cramps? And how dare you? No, just answer the question. I just got this stupid letter from you. Now, suppose I would have written on that note that my son had a cold and lied to you, and he knew I was lying. It would have been an excused absence, wouldn't it? Well, so what you want me to do, Miss Drake Hupp, was to lie to my son and to lie to you so I wouldn't have to get some stupid letter from you. How's his academic record in school? Good. Is it? But his cooperation is. Maybe you're boring him. He happened to be a kid that learned easy, but he was a bitch in school because he was like his father. Tell me why the South won the war. Questions like that. So we lie to our children and lie to the teachers rather than tell the truth. And then we wonder why children develop the habit of lying. And don't tell me you never wrote a fake note to the teacher or to the principal or to the school, because you all do it. Irv, my big gripe at my daughter's public school is the use of cell phones by kids in school. They are banned. Teachers allow them and the kids are texting each other during class. It's insane. Well, of course it is, because you, the parents who have children with cell phones, do not make them turn in at the office when they go to school and pick them up at the end of the day. Now, I will tell you a situation that I encountered. I had to go to court with my son as a witness for someone who broke into his car, going into the courthouse, the Justice Center in Philadelphia. We had to check our cell phones in the lobby. Grown man, my son's 44 years old. We had to check our phones, but I dare any principal demand or search a kid if they've got a cell phone. And you know the first person who would bitch and complain? The parent who gave the kid the cell phone in the first place to take to school. And rather get involved in a pissing contest with the child or the parent, if the teacher takes the cell phone, the teacher says, to hell with them. Let him text message. What do I care? Irv, the community colleges are nothing but remedial warehouses and way stations for the kids whose parents want them to go to college, but the kid can't cut it. They are nothing more than glorified summer schools in the fall. I would tend to agree with the writer on one condition: that education is a two-part program. You can get out of education what you put into it. If you have ears like sponges and eyes like sponges, the child will see and hear what it wants to learn. But if the child is not programmed to get an education, if the child is taught that teachers are lousy, if the child is taught that the teachers make too much money, then the child is not going to go to school as a receptive vehicle to get an education. Irv, I am very lucky and proud that my parents were the first educator. From that influence, my sister has taken on being the first educator to her 3 little kids. I have become to be self-educated from their foundation. It can be done, can it? Responsible parents have responsible students and responsible children. Children that are raised by the state or by teachers end up in prison. On the 3-level factors of school, teacher, and student, which includes home environment and background knowledge, teachers are the most important factor affecting student learning and achievement. There is a wide variation of effectiveness among teachers. However, this has not been disputed. I agree. But it's the system that I'm criticizing, not the teachers. I have teachers that have been in the public school system for years that agree with me. And some of them say, well, geez, Herb, you're going to need just as many teachers in the private school system as you have in the public school system. So teachers would not be out of work. They probably would be better educators, have less incidents of violence, more cooperative students than they've got in the public school systems today. Irv, I am 35 and back in school. I see what the others who are in their early 20-something learned. They couldn't even give a country and capital off the top of their heads when asked, other than the obvious France or Italy. Well, of course. What's surprising about that? You ask the average person who sends their child to public school, they'll say, well, it's free education. Wait a minute. Huh. Not a free education. You're paying for it some way. What about inner school cities? Why are they the worst? Well, they're the worst because they have irresponsible parents. And when you have irresponsible parents and babies having babies, and young women who become broodmares, who have 4 or 5, all you have to do is to watch the Jerry Springer show or watch the Maury Povich show, and you can understand why the inner cities are so bad. One guy was on Maury Povich's show. He was 20 years old. He had 11 kids by 9 different women. And the stud mares that he was knocking up were, quote, mothers that lived in the inner city. What do you expect the inner city school to do? We don't embarrass this type of behavior anymore. And you're going to say, well, suppose they don't send them to school. Then let's have state-run orphanages where we take them away from irresponsible parents. You can breed them as long as you feed them and take care of them. But it's not my responsibility or your responsibility to pay for welfare, food stamps, and all the other crap when we could remove those children and put them in an education system and living conditions far superior than what these young little whores are having babies all over the place for. Our next comment, current research, length of day and school year are factors, but not much as correlation. Perhaps specific summer programs for SPED or migrant worker students would be more applicable to at-risk schools in terms of NCLBAYPS. What are we playing, alphabet soup here? There will be problems in mandatory, there would be problems in private schools, no question about it. But how much longer, ladies and gentlemen, can we go on the way we are and compete in the international competition of world educators today? That's what I'd like to know. And what are the mandatory schools turning out? Remedial reading classes if you go to work for a company? Irv, we are in the best of hands. Here in New Jersey, they're talking about training Wall Street stockbrokers to be math and science teachers. Well, God, I hope they don't teach them to be math and science teachers like they taught them to be economists. Irv, on health care. Don't the prisoners in jail get a form of universal health care up until they're released and then go back to being uninsured? Why would someone want to get out of jail when they get their medical care for free? Well, you see, ladies and gentlemen, at one time, the home environment was much better than the prison environment. And so nobody wanted to go to prison, you see. And so there was a reluctance to go to prison because prison wasn't very nice. But if you take a look at the homes that our society has deteriorated to, housing projects, slums, pigs masquerading as human beings, the first time some of these people who go to prison ever had a clean bed and 3 square meals a day and health care was when they went to prison. Now, they do lose a certain amount of freedom, of course. But when you see on the news schools being, or rather prisons with television cameras on them, you ever see a dirty prisoner? They got clean t-shirts on, they're all shaven, neat pants, clothes, prison spotless. It's a much better living environment than these kids came from. So why wouldn't they dislike prison? As I said, you lose freedom. but their living conditions and medical care in prison is a damn sight superior to what they're living with in the inner city. No Child Left Behind, annual yearly progress. All schools must meet these by 2014, which is great because Arlene Ackerman, who is the head of the Philadelphia School Systems contract, is up in 2013. So if it doesn't meet the goal, she won't have a problem. No Child Left Behind, annual yearly progress should not be the responsibility of the government. It should be the responsibility of the parents. We are the parents. We are the ones who breed them. The federal government does not make babies. We make babies. The little bimbo, the little hooker at 16, 17, 18, the little whore in the inner city, they make babies, not the government. And if that little whore can't keep that baby, then remove it and put it in an atmosphere called an orphanage, where the child will have medical care, have a chance to get an even break when it matures and goes to school. Irv, I want to ask you about a history book. My grandson asked me to help him with his homework. Take mine. This is his history book, titled World Cultures, a Global Mosaic, written by, and I cannot pronounce their names. Not one of the chapters are on USA. Am I wrong to object to this history to be taught? Mary. Well, Mary, there's nothing wrong with the fact that since we are a global society today, and the world is getting smaller and smaller, I see nothing wrong with studying a book of world cultures, as long that somewhere along the line the child is taught the history of the United States. So in addition to the history of the United States, we should be teaching other world cultures. If America knew the culture, including the politicians, that get us involved in no-win wars like Vietnam, Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, even World War II, we wouldn't have the wars that we have. And the war that we have going on right now, starting with 9/11, is a result of the lack of education of our political leaders in knowing what the culture, the habits, and the religion is of the rest of the world. And now we're getting a lesson. And it's a lesson of learning. What is Islam? What is the Northern Alliance in Afghanistan? What is the fight between Hindus and Punjabs, or Hindus and Sikhs, or Hindus and Muslims? We know nothing of that. I learned it because I was interested 30 years ago when I saw the growth of Islam as a world religion. Screamed about it on the air. Nobody gave a damn. Screamed about this mortgage crisis. Nobody gave a damn. Screamed about the IRS. Nobody gave a damn. And as I said, it's a lot easier to teach children who know nothing than to try to educate parents or adults. Adults know it all. And so I was the crazy that was on radio talking about the unconstitutionality of the 16th Amendment, talking about the cultures of the rest of the world, saying that Christianity and Judaism was going to be under attack from Islam. I was the nutcase. Well, the nutcases are not on the air anymore. The windbags are on the air. And what the hell are you learning from the air today? What are you learning from radio today? Nothing. And that's why they let them get away with it. An ignorant society, ladies and gentlemen, can be led by the nose. And America is being led by the nose. Do you think inner cities should halt education and enlist the help of the young to fix their cities by learning on-the-job training such as carpentry, plumbing, masonry to start? Well, of course. There should be vocational training. The unions should have their own schools. Industry should have its own schools. Enroll in an educational system of private schools that are going to benefit the child as it matures so it can get a job when it gets out of school. It is the way that they educate in Europe. Germany's education system is run by industry and goods and services. And that's why when they graduate from school, they move into industry, medicine, technology, computers. And so there's an incentive for industry to teach its growing workforce. Gangs in prisons are all that seem to be featured on the History Channel and MSNBC. Are they glorifying this? They're glorifying it to the insane. To people think that prison, and many people I still hear today, oh, prisons are like a country club. They're treated so well there. No, they're not. The documentaries that I've seen when they bring them into these prisons are taught by these prisoners what it's like. There was a program called Scared Stiff or Scared Straight, where they took young snot noses into prison. These guys gave them a workout. I'm sorry, 13 years K-12 could be compressed to 11 years K-10 and no full grade do-overs, cutting the cost of the taxpayers and concentrating the education so that the graduation comes at 16, not 18. When it's unnecessary for an 18-year-old to be sitting in the local school, it's like breastfeeding a 7-year-old kid, inappropriate age for that sort of activity. When you've got 16-year-olds focusing on achieving the next level, they would more focus on that next step, not messing around. I can't believe I'm saying this, but hey, it's all about the money now. Something's got to change, nothing personal, only business. Well, you're right. Education should be a business. That's why it should be private and not public. To the telephone, welcome to the Irv Homer Show. Hello.
Hi, Irv.
Hi.
You said about being led by the nose, but you're not talking about the current, and I agree with you on leading by the nose with the world cultures and our, but I tried fighting some of the, when I did have children in school, I tried fighting some of the bureaucratic nonsense about what they were being taught in school, and you get passed around from one place to another and get nothing accomplished. But the current being led by the nose. There's this new terminology out there called toxic assets, which they just came up with. Now, what is a toxic asset? It means a worthless piece of paper. This, they came up with this terminology, the TARP program, and everybody is talking about this now. But the people, the American people, or the people of the United States, don't know what the TARP program is, or know what a toxic asset is that we're buying.
Continue.
There's nothing else to get. By the way, I'm in school, and I am a senior citizen myself, and I am surrounded by very, very, very bright people. I'm in a master's program at Westchester University, and some of the students are on student visas from other countries, India, Korea, and but the students from the United States that are in this program and the professors are very, very smart. So we do have, it's a science and a math curriculum. So we do have some very, very smart people here also.
But the one thing they have is the desire to learn. Right?
Sure.
That's the
point. And so do I.
That's right.
That's why I'm there.
That's why you're going to be. That's why you're going. That's why they're successful. Thanks so much for calling, and continue. Good luck.
That's why we listen to Irv Homer.
Let me know when you graduate.
You'll come to my graduation.
Thanks for calling. on the website or on the chat room, Irv, I just heard on the Big Talker that Glenn Beck's audience has grown by 100% since last summer. Limbaugh is getting lots of attention. Is Obama helping the right radio bloviators build their minions? Well, there's nothing else to listen to in the Philadelphia market or on 600 radio stations. But let me ask you to do yourself a favor. Michael Klein is the entertainment editor for the Philadelphia Inquirer. WPHT, the radio station 1210 that carries Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, and Sean Hannity, never appear in Michael Klein's column when they talk about ratings. Now, regardless of what the Big Talker says, contact Michael Klein at the Philadelphia Inquirer and ask him if he has a copy of the ratings for Glenn Beck, for Michael Smerconish, for Dom Giordano, for Rush Limbaugh, for Sean Hannity, and see where they show up in competition with the other 35 or 40 radio stations in the city of Philadelphia. For a 50,000 watt clear channel radio station, clear channel meaning that nowhere in the world is there another station on the frequency of 1210. Okay? Get a copy and see what their ratings are. And then you'll see how many people listen to them as opposed to listening to other radio stations. They never talk about their ratings. Do you know why? Because the music stations in Philadelphia are far superior to WPHT. So call Michael Klein. Tell him I said to call him. The phone number is in the bottom of his articles when he appears in the Philadelphia Inquirer. And ask Michael, what was the spring book? They have 4 books a year. Spring, winter, summer, and fall. And ask him why he don't publish the ratings of WPHT. I can say that the Irv Homer Show is multiplied by 100%, by 200%, by 300%. You got no way of knowing what it is because you don't see the rating book. So find out what the ratings are of Glenn Beck or of Rush Limbaugh. Is Barack Obama's administration adding fuel to the fire? Of course. Neither Beck nor Limbaugh or Hannity have any clue on how to solve the problem. All they can do is spread the disease. Obama's big mistake was even paying any attention to them. Don't forget, Limbaugh may have 20 million listeners, which I doubt. Obama won by 70 million. Obama's a little more popular than Rush Limbaugh. My favorite class was an experimental class teaching law. We took a class trip to county prison and wrote a paper about it as our final. Well, I said today on my program on commercial radio that the old Indian expression was, don't judge a person until you walk in their moccasins. And for those that scream and yell about education and how rotten the teachers are, I suggest you sit in the classroom for a week. I suggest that when you yell about the police, ride with the police some Friday or Saturday night. Ride with the EMS to pull drunks out of trees where their car ran into a tree while they were drunk. I heard Rick Williams, one of my favorite broadcast journalists, say today, we all have to pinch our pennies. Rick, cut me a break. The money that you're making, you ain't cutting any. I heard Limbaugh sympathizing with, man makes $110 million a year. Rush, are you hurting? Beck, are you hurting? Is Irv Homer hurting? Of course not. I can sympathize with it, but I still spend money as I want to because I was smart enough to see what was coming down the pike. So don't listen to this garbage. Get the fuzz. Put a vacuum cleaner. Do yourself a favor. Tomorrow, take the vacuum cleaner, the one that sucks, put it to your ear and get the dust out of your damn brain. Suck the fuzzballs out. Maybe you'll think better. Why do we not use the metric system as the premier method of measurement? Because Americans are too damn lazy to learn the metric system that would save us at the time the proposal was made, my dear friend. If we converted to the metric system with our currency and with our measurement, because we do have a conflict, 100 pennies make $1, right? Is that right? Then why is it that 12 inches make 1 foot? So we measure by the old system, and our money is metric. Americans are too lazy to learn. And the government will give you anything you want to keep you lazy and uninformed. You're absolutely right. We didn't even get into the meat of the program today, but once again, I can tell that people do not read the books I tell you not to read. Education, ladies and gentlemen, cannot be hand spoon fed unless you want to educate yourself. Teachers can't inject education into your kid's arm, and they can't inject it into your brain. You have to want to learn. And some of the things that I recall as a young man that I thought my parents were nuts, actually thought my father was a mental case, when he said, Irving, my father was a very brilliant man, although he wasn't even a high school graduate. Successful businessman, great father, said to me, Irving, you want to learn it? There it is right there. The thing that I fear most right now, ladies and gentlemen, is the new generation are computer literate. But if you ever want to say something to your kids, computers will give you information, but will not educate your child. Books educate. Computers inform. And we are moving into an information society rather than an educated society. I'm Irv Homer. Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling in. It was a great night tonight. Howard, welcome home. I'll see you on Wednesday night. Don't forget, we do the program commercially on WBCB 1490 AM during the week, Monday through Friday. It's a different type of program than I do here. Maybe you'll enjoy it, and maybe you won't. I'm Irv Homer. Once again, we've been broadcasting from irvhomer.com. My website is www.irvhomer.com. Email address is evilerv@irvhomer.com. I'm not done yet. Oh, just a minute, folks. This is a very informal program. This is a very informal program. Hello? We're still on the air. Can I help you? Anything I can do for you while we're still on the air? Do you believe in mandatory education? Mandatory education. Yes, you do. All right, I will send you an email and answer that question. Good night. Happy motoring. Very informal program, ladies and gentlemen.
The Ron Tech Show.
The person called about mandatory education. I'm Irv Homer. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on Wednesday.